So I've always been a massive fan of Mahito, and not in a weird way. I know a lot of people like Mahito, and it's kind of odd, especially earlier on in season 1 when we see him. But I actually really have enjoyed his character, and also his powers more specifically. And season 2 just reassured me how much of a freak this dude is, and how sick his abilities truly are. Because Mahito as a good guy would have been the greatest force for good, hands down. Now, at the end of season 2, we watch Yuji Itadori more or less walk this guy down like an absolute dog, and he's walking through some so-called snow, and he's absolutely terrified. He's gotten himself into a position he can't get out of, a position that only leads in one thing, and that is death. Now, with that said, you might be wondering, well, what are we going to talk about basically with Mahito? And more or less, it's the fact that his abilities could lead him to be the greatest force for good, hands down. Now, I want to start with the more or less obvious one, and that's dealing with Mechamaru. Mechamaru was somebody that had a heavenly restriction that forced him to more or less be stuck, just completely tied up, with tubes flowing through him, unable to step out into the sun rays and so on. But, well, Mahito's so strong that he could straight up give Mechamaru a brand new body, and more or less give him the ability to do the things that he wasn't able to do in the first place. More or less canceling out his heavenly restriction and allowing him to fight unimpeded, at least to a certain extent. So I was wondering, if Mahito was good, how much good could he have actually done? I mean, there are some crazy characters in this series that would be amazing if Mahito unleashed their potential, something that Mahito 100% could have done. Now, with that said, would the real Mahito ever do this? Definitely not. That's why it's more like a theoretical thing and kind of like a little rant and a tangent that I would like to go on. Now, for starters, I want to start with the one, the only, the brother, Aoi Todo. We know that Todo more or less gets kind of his boogie woogie taken away entirely by Mahito himself, and obviously if Mahito was good, then he wouldn't do this. But let's just say, a guess, that if Mahito actually still did this, or someone else did this, let's say, or Force, and then Mahito decided, oh, well, you want your boogie woogie back? Well, sure, he could 100% do that, because his innate technique is idol transfiguration, his ability to more or less reshape the soul, and it allows him to, of course, disfigure the bodies of victims, but he also could straight up heal himself, straight up heal others, change the soul for the benefit of a jujutsu sorcerer. That would be insane, and he could easily give back not only the arm of Aoi Todo, but also the boogie woogie that is deep inside him. Now, with that said, I must say, oh my goodness, the scene of Todo slapping his cut off hand, saying that, well, the boogie woogie is from the soul, and that he doesn't need his hand to actually clap, he doesn't need his hand to teleport and swap places. Oh my goodness, it was such an epic scene, and basically is the reason why Itadori ended up getting the upper hand and defeating him. But that was such an awesome little thing. And then obviously the boogie woogie unfortunately was permanently gone, and it didn't exist because, well, Mahito was able to affect the soul in a, well, like I said before, in a negative way. But as always, if he could do it in a positive way, I mean, we're talking about some crazy jujutsu sorcerers that could have massive amounts of power. Now let's talk about two people, and I'm going to talk about them kind of simultaneously because, well, in a way they're kind of the same, and we're going to talk about Maki and Toji. Now, Maki and Toji have very similar powers, and we know in the manga, Maki does end up unlocking those said powers after, well, spoiler alert, really fast, if you didn't know this, after her sister does, well, die, and it allows her to more or less unlock the full capabilities of her, well, abilities and her heavenly restriction. But on top of that, she has to go through a bunch of other stuff, but I won't get into that. That's not really what matters. Now, these are people who have a heavenly restriction that doesn't allow them to use cursed energy at all. And imagine if you had someone like Mahito transform the soul, where I don't know if this could actually be possible, but I think theoretically it could be. Basically transform their soul into keeping their heavenly restriction, keeping the strength, keeping the power, keeping the skill, but also giving them cursed energy. These people would be wildly powerful. We saw that Toji was going head to head with a younger Gojo, and we've seen the capabilities that Toji can do. Even Maki was able to basically go fist to fist with Sukuna, and Sukuna even gave her props, saying that's one person he wanted to beat because, well, she was showing immense hand-to-hand combat skill, and he wanted to make sure that he covered all his bases in terms of, you know, these people that are trying to contest him, quote unquote. Now, let's hold off on talking about those specific characters. I've talked about, well, 3 of them technically, but I kind of jumbled 2 of them together. I want to go into the idea of him being the literal most emphatic and best healer possible. Yeah, healer. This might sound weird. Most of you are probably like, well, what is this? A freaking video game? What do you mean healer? Yeah. So he's literally able to more or less dismember certain body parts and then literally transform them back. So if Mahito more or less can have his arm get completely chopped off and him more or less restructure it back pretty easily, or different parts of his body, maybe healing his own wounds or transforming appendages into weapons, it's literally limitless to the possible transformations that he can incur on his own. But imagine if he had full control for someone else, which there's an argument to be made that he has quite a bit control, especially when seeing what he did with Mechamaru in terms of changing his entire body and basically giving him pretty good, more or less, strength, because he kind of got rid of his heavenly restriction, or at least got rid of the drawback of the heavenly restriction to a large extent. His healing ability could literally stop a multitude of people from ever dying. I mean, he would be the definition of the white mage. I mean, as long as he was alive, everyone that came back basically or close to death would just get revived immediately. Like, it would be kind of like the same thing with Dende and the Frieza saga. It would literally be like, oh, someone comes back and they're barely living. Mahito more or less slaps a hand on him and poof, guess who's back? Back again. It seems like Shady's back. Or, well, whoever Mahito is healing is back. But that's kind of beyond the point. Like, he straight up is, or could have been, the craziest healer ever. Like, hands down. I mean, the connection with the soul, and we know how important the connection with the soul is. I mean, he straight up was more or less connected to Sukuna's soul once he more or less utilized his domain expansion. And of course, Sukuna was not very happy about that when it did occur, but it kind of shows how quickly Mahito can connect to the soul, and probably how quickly he would be able to heal anybody as long as he's basically given the chance or the ability to do so. Now, on top of him being a, well, good person, or like I said, why Mahito could have been the greatest force for good, I mean, if he was on the side of, well, the heroes or the Jujutsu sorcerers, I mean, this guy would be a literal, like, Namekian guru. I mean, he would be able to awaken everybody's potential. Like, if you have any drawback, anything that's restricting you, or maybe you have a restriction on yourself, or you can't get past a certain hurdle, Mahito could form your soul in a way that could make you even stronger. I mean, theoretically, he could form Gojo's soul in a way that makes him even stronger. I mean, now, is that really something that would be plausible? Well, I don't know, because this isn't even plausible, because Mahito would never become good. But still, we have characters that are practically useless in Jujutsu Kaisen. They know who they are. I mean, it's pretty transparent on who they are. But there's a lot of them. And frankly, if Mahito got a hold of them, not trying to kill them and make them into very scary, like weird figure people, he would actually be able to help them drastically and help the Jujutsu sorcerer world drastically as well. But knowing the higher ups, I mean, they probably have him executed. They'd be like, oh, he's doing so much good for the world and so much good for our cause. Let's end his life. He's gonna be put on trial. He's gonna be put on trial to be killed. Because that's just what the Jujutsu sorcerer world does, I guess, or the higher ups do, which is kind of mind blowing to me. But think about your strongest and most favorite characters in Jujutsu Kaisen, and think about Mahito actually awakening their potential and awakening their abilities. That's the type of stuff he would be able to do, and that's the type of stuff that would be able to happen if Mahito actually was a good person. And this is why I believe Mahito could have been, hands down, the greatest force for good in Jujutsu Kaisen. But I would love to hear what you guys have to say. Do you think Mahito could have been, I mean, in a sense of if he was good? Do you think he could have done even more than what I said? Maybe I left out some things that you believe he could do or would be capable of doing. Let me know in the comment section below. Would love to hear what you guys have to say. I know this is a little unusual because normally I never do like normal JJK stuff or even like a JJK rant. Normally I don't do stuff like that. But Jujutsu Kaisen is something I've been enjoying quite a bit. So it's something I do want to add to the repertoire every so often, here and there, talk about this, talk about that. And I'm going to be doing this with other animes most likely. So if you enjoy it, let me know. I hope you guys did. Make sure to leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. And I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.